Well, greetings, everybody. I look forward to a great discussion. I always, when I come to Australia, I always say this is the unhappiest successful country in the world, right? So I always am trying to wonder what people are thinking when I'm hearing stuff like that. So maybe I'd start with just a little bit of an economic backdrop, because I think with all the volatility that we read about every day, there's just not as much changing under the surface as you'd read about if you just read the newspapers every day or thought about, all the volatility that you think. And I think maybe 6 factors I'd go through quickly. First, the US economy gets a little bit better every day, fiscal challenges, but on a slow recovery path. 2, Europe is tough and will probably stay in a slow growth mode for a long time, but real challenged. 3, believe in China. There's always going to be puts and takes, but the primacy of 1 billion plus people, a very strong balance sheet, the fundamental growth in the emerging markets, I still think remains strong. So if you're in the mining business or other businesses that are about extraction, I still would stay bullish on the long-term future in that sphere. 4, one of the things that every government in the world cares about is inflation. It's the way to make people less wealthy. Inflation appears to be in check for now, but that, if anything, is the biggest source of volatility. 5, energy continues to go through lots of iterations, but the consumption of energy over the long term will continue to grow. And the different sources of fuels and technologies are really important. 6, financial services reforms are real. There's no going back. And again, I view that as a generational change in terms of the amount of regulation. So if I look through those 6 things, which I think drive, kind of us poor, humble businessmen, none of us got A's in economics in college. We all were the B students in economics, but those are the 6 things that I look at. If you look at that dashboard, you say Australia's got a great position. Australia can play very strongly in the Asian trade. Australia's energy rich. There are a lot of ways that, just based on the factors of the world, this country is going to be the beneficiary of. So I think that is the backdrop that I would have. Now, what Australia is working on is the same thing I see when I go to Canada, Brazil, Russia, Saudi Arabia, Africa. All the resource-rich countries in the world are all after the same quest. And that is, how do we take this natural wealth, maybe it's short-term, maybe it's long-term, but how do we take this incredible good fortune and turn it into broader prosperity for more people? We do that through industrial policy, we do that through innovation, we do that through education. In the case of Brazil, it's local content rules, right? In the case of Saudi, it's employment programs. In the case of Russia, it's rebuilding national champions. In the case of Canada, it's trying to get more wealth from the west to the east, right? So there's various techniques, but what you're struggling with here in Australia is something I see on a global basis when I go around the world. So maybe I'll just end it there to say, I always brag about Australia. I say, look, people are rich, they speak English, things are good, cities are pretty. This is a country, and in many ways, we're long in this country. We've got $6.5 billion in revenue. Our industrial revenue growth was 21% in the first half of the year. We're investing. We've announced the acquisition of a mining company. We are so you may be unhappy about your country, but I'm not. I'd say so. We are long Australia, and so we're rooting for. I always say this to the GE team, right? I always say, look, I personally think we're in this period of time. We could be 5 years from now and feel exactly the same way we feel today. In fact, we probably will. So I always say, if you decide that's normal, you're going to be happy. And if you think these are bad days, you're going to be unhappy. But I always root for happiness. I always say, take it as it is. This is probably about what it's going to feel like for a long period of time. if you can win in this environment, you can win. And that's, I think, the way I would look at it. So with that, maybe turn it back over to the boss here and have a good panel discussion.